Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today's is going to be a little bit more chit-chatty. I actually made myself a cup of hot cocoa because it's really hot today. I probably shouldn't be drinking this, but hot cocoa is like my comfort drink. I like it. Oh, of course, when I say hot cocoa, I mean like it's totally dairy free. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about / share my diagnosis with Crohn's, my like health journey with Crohn's and primary sclerosing cholangitis, which from now on we're just going to call PSC from here on out, because I have a bunch of videos that I want to share, like different recipe things and different things, kind of like what we eat in a week, kind of as a gluten-free and dairy-free family and all sorts of stuff like that. And I feel like just a little bit of background on why that all is, why we eat the way we eat makes sense. And I know that when I was, shortly after I was diagnosed, I was looking for other people's journeys and stories and looking to see if there was any similarities. So I've been meaning to make this video for years and it is finally here. So before I get like into my story, something to note is that Jared was diagnosed with celiac 3 years before my stuff all started kind of coming out. So we were gluten-free, and / our house has been gluten-free for 10 years now. I will have some gluten when we're out and about, but I find it too stressful to think about, like I don't want to contaminate him. So we just eat gluten-free at home. So he is a big part of that. Maybe I'll get him on here sometime. I think it'd be interesting to kind of talk about his health journey and all of that, maybe when he has time. But for the most part, the gluten-freeness is because of him, although we were just on a trip and I came back very sick, and I'm wondering, because I didn't eat things I shouldn't have eaten, I'm wondering how much of this was a gluten thing. Maybe gluten affects me more than I realize, but because I don't eat it very much, I don't know. But anyway, okay, let's go back. We're gonna go back to when I was 15. Let's go back that far. It's been a few years. And I am going to reference, I wrote a blog post a number of years ago already. I titled it, Living with Crohn's for More Than 15 Years and Not Even Knowing It, Signs and Symptoms of Crohn's Disease. And the reason I'm going to refer back to this is because I wrote this post a few years, okay, a year and a half after I was diagnosed. And now it's been 7 years. This fall will be 7 years. So things are a little more hazy. This timeline is a little bit more accurate. If I have any inaccuracies here, it's just because my memory is not that great, not because I'm intentionally saying things wrong. But anyway, I do remember when I was 15, this was like back in the day, I don't know, maybe other people saw these commercials too. World Vision would have these commercials come on with these kids. There was always like a black kid in Africa with like flies swarming around their face, and it was child sponsorship that they were, you know, pushing. And I remember from a young age those really affecting me, and I really wanted to adopt from Africa as a result of those commercials. And they also had like a whole World Vision TV show too that I would watch. But it was around this time that I started having a lot of intense stomach pain. And for the most part, I would describe the pain that I feel as if someone is taking a little paring knife, you know, like it's not like a big knife, and just like repeatedly jabbing it in my stomach. That's how it feels to me. You know, we're not going serrated knife, we're not going butcher knife, just a small knife, just repeatedly being stabbed into your stomach. That's how it feels. And I remember this happening starting up around the age of 15, because I remember praying one time when it was intense and just telling God, you know, like, because I had no idea why this was happening. I'm like, I'm okay if I can never have biological kids because I want to adopt. I'm okay with adopting. That's good with me. I probably should have told my family about these pains, but when things start sometimes, and they're just for a brief period and it goes away, then you think, oh, okay, whatever, that just, something happened and it became, like, it disappeared. It's fine. I'm good now. And then it comes back again and you're like, oh yeah, like we've done this before. It goes away. And then there's a point after a few years where you're like, oh yeah, doesn't everyone just feel these paring knife stabbings kind of like on a regular basis? That's what I thought for years. It turns out no they don't, and I didn't have to either. Let's fast forward to, I think it was the year that I turned 30. So we're fast forwarding 15 years, I guess this blog post title makes sense now, when I was 30, all of a sudden I was having 2 different symptoms. And I should put out a disclaimer. There's gonna be like some bowel movement talk here. I mean, Crohn's disease is a inflammatory bowel disease. I'll keep things as nice as I can here. But I was having 2 symptoms. One, after hearing something from a friend, I thought I had hemorrhoids. And then 2, I also thought I was suddenly lactose intolerant. Pretty much I was bleeding when I went to the bathroom and nothing was staying in, especially with dairy. And I went to my doctor, and my doctor is so great, except she's maybe not the best at communicating, because she knew something was wrong and sent me for a bunch of referrals, but like gave me no idea what these referrals were for. And this happened just this last year too. She sent me for a referral because of a nosebleed, and I had no idea that they were going to cauterize a blood vessel in my nose. A little warning going in would be nice. But other than that, like, she gets things done. So I got a referral to go to, I think, I'm trying to remember now. I think I went to see a specialist, a gastro, I don't actually know what his full title is, some kind of specialist, internal specialist, and chatted with him for a bit. He also is terrible at communicating. I see him on a regular basis, a couple times a year. He's terrible at communicating. I had no idea what we were doing, except I was told that we were going to go for a colonoscopy. And from my Googling, Google is so good and so dangerous, I assumed that they were like fixing the hemorrhoid issue because of, yeah, I had no idea what was going on. Like, why no one was talking? I don't know. And I didn't know the questions to even ask. Like, I feel like I should have been asking questions, but I had no idea that I should have been, like, or what those questions were. Okay, so I turned 30 in May, and then I think my colonoscopy was scheduled for September. And colonoscopy, like the whole prep, like the colonoscopy part, they pretty much put a person out, is fine. But the prep is no joke, and not in a way that people would think. There's a drink that I have to drink 4 liters of, like a huge drink, 4 liters in the span of 2 or 3 hours, and it literally makes my veins, like my blood veins, feel like they're ice. I've Googled it. Google. It's helpful sometimes. And it happens on occasion to people, or like a rare percentage of the population has this happen. And I'm just one of those people. So I went for my colonoscopy, and then they like don't actually fully put you out, but they give you something like to relax you, and it pretty much does wipe me out. So I remember waking up for a brief moment during the colonoscopy, and I saw the screen of like the camera, and I just remember thinking, oh wow, that's red. And then I fell back asleep. And then I woke up a bit later after it was over. The doctor came and he was like, yeah, you have Crohn's. And then he left. I was like, wait, what just happened? Like I was like, I don't even know what Crohn's is. What's going on? Like, I thought there was like, I was just so dazed and confused, partly because I was just kind of coming off of this little bit of sedative, but also I was just not expecting this. So he gave me a prescription for a steroid to start healing things. Like, I honestly don't even know. He didn't really tell me things. He gave me 2 prescriptions. I think one was for a steroid and one was for like a long-term medication thing that I'm still on. And the steroid I had to take for a certain amount of time. I think it was like 6 weeks, but I did the dosing all wrong. And I feel like part of this is the doctor's fault, part of this is my fault, but the steroids, when I was taking them, I wasn't taking too many. I just finished them sooner than I was supposed to, and you have to like wean off of them. But a couple of things. First of all, the steroid made me swell up. I have some pictures. We did family pictures around that time, and I look chubby. And well, I mean, I've gained some weight since then, so I don't know how much chubbier I look than now, but I had lost quite a bit of weight this summer leading up to the colonoscopy and leading up to my diagnosis. But I literally like felt swollen, you know, like, you know, when you feel swollen, it didn't feel like, oh, I was fat. It felt like it was just fluid. But it also made me feel very, it kind of like gave me an out-of-body experience for the however many weeks I was taking it. I kind of felt like I was like in some ways floating like 2 inches above my body. I just never felt like I could fully get back to myself in a way. Everything always felt a little confused. Like, I've never actually done drugs, but I imagine almost this is what it would feel like sometimes. A little bit just, yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain it. I always just felt like I was just not fully in my body. Very weird feeling. So I took those for not the amount of time that I was supposed to, but less time. And it turns out it was okay. Okay, so one of the benefits of being on a steroid, though, not that I'm like saying you should go on any kind of steroid, is you never feel tired. I think I was getting like 3 hours of sleep. I would go to bed, wake up in the middle of the night and just like work on stuff. And I was just like never felt tired. So I guess there was a benefit to feeling really swollen. So looking at my timeline here, I think it was November. So I went for my colonoscopy in September. November, I met him again. This is after I was done the prednisone or something. The swelling definitely lasted longer than that though. Then he mentioned, I think I must have done blood work at the hospital with the colonoscopy. He mentioned that my liver levels were also really off. And so then we went on a journey trying to figure out why my liver levels were high. And this is where I have to refer to my timeline, because I went through a number of different tests in the next 6 months and don't even remember a lot of them. But before we get into the liver section, one of the things that I decided to do after figuring out that this was Crohn's and stuff was to go off of dairy completely. Now, I am a very picky adult, the pickiest person that I know as far as food goes. Almost all, like I'm almost pickier than all kids as well. So it's a socially awkward thing to be a picky person. Especially when you don't choose to be picky, you just don't like food. But as a kid, I pretty much lived off of like crackers and cheese. And I remember years ago when like the gluten-free diet was kind of becoming a thing, like a fad, not like something that people necessarily had to do, but just wanted to do. And I remember thinking like, who would choose to go gluten-free? And then Jared got diagnosed, and then it's like, oh, okay, living without gluten's not like terrible. And then it was like, but cheese, like I need my cheese. And then realizing dairy is a trigger. And so for an entire year, maybe a year and a half, I went completely off of dairy. And it turns out I can still survive. There's some great alternatives. There are some things that just you can't replace. But then since then, I've like slowly kind of gone back on dairy. Very much if I'm gonna eat dairy, it's lactose free. And like my hot cocoa here has cashew milk. I don't drink milk. Like our butter is just lactose free margarine. I do eat some cheese and some yogurt. Those are both lactose free. But I was figuring out like different triggers for me, and dairy was a big one. You can survive without it. Oh, apparently I never did blog about my liver disease stuff. So let me see if I can remember. So he took me for I think he sent me for a bunch of tests. I'm pretty sure Lyme disease can also affect the liver. They got that ruled out. There was a couple things they ruled out. Which one did I do first? I went for a thing with a bunch of letters, which I'll put up because I don't remember what it is, where they went down through my throat, through the stomach, towards the liver. I don't even know how the anatomy works. I remember looking it up before we did the test, but I don't remember now. And they did a test because they were looking for a different liver disease. What are common liver diseases? I can't remember. I think there was like another like fairly common one that they were also looking for. So we did that test and it just came back negative, like whatever they were looking for there, it wasn't that. And then in the summer, I think it was like June, I went for a liver biopsy, which like is so fascinating what they can do in the medical field. You know, they don't even have to cut a person open. They just, also like your liver is like a lot lower than I ever realized. It's right underneath your rib cage. They kind of just took like a big needle and went into my liver. Oh yeah, because I also went for a CT scan. Before this, there was a CT scan and there was a tumor or lumps or whatever, something on my liver. So I went for this CT scan. That's what that equaled. And it turns out if you are claustrophobic, just look into the CT scan, you'll realize that the end is actually open and you don't have to lie there for like half an hour completely still, terrified like some people might have. I just prayed the entire time, and then afterwards I looked and I was like, oh, there was an opening there. I didn't have to feel so claustrophobic. So I went for the CT scan. Sorry you guys, I told you it's been a few years. And then it showed, I feel like tumor is not the right word, but something on my liver. So then I went for a biopsy, and they just, yeah, used like a big syringe needle and take some out and put it in a little jar. She showed it to me. It was like very thin spaghetti, but not like the right color, like pink spaghetti, red spaghetti. Fascinating. And then after a liver biopsy, you have to be on bed rest for 4 hours. So I just hung out. I read Mansfield Park, finished it, hate that book. Bed rest was terrible. And like, you know, you can go 4 or 5 hours without going to the bathroom, right? But when they say you're not even allowed to get up to go to the bathroom, like the next thing you think is, I have to pee. Like, I didn't have to before, but now I do. Oh, our bodies are so weird. God has done some like amazing things. If I was, you know, a creator of any sort, like there's no way I could even fathom like a fraction of the intricacies of our bodies. Like, it just astounds me, and I can like look up how things are done and stuff, and I still don't even understand how that's even possible. It's like the moon. I always joke to Jared that the moon doesn't even exist and no one ever landed on the moon, because I just cannot fathom rockets going out to space. Like, that just blows my mind. I'm getting off topic. Okay, so liver biopsy. That also came back negative. I think somewhere in this time, during this time of the liver search, my doctor, my specialist, started me on a bile pill. I think, oh man, synthetic bile, and I believe I had read at some point that they possibly harvested from pears. I don't know, it was very fascinating. It can't all be, it must just be synthetic other ways too. It's also, its primary use is actually to dissolve gallstones. He started me on this at some point, and I think he was noticing that my liver levels were returning back to normal. I don't know, there's a couple of different liver tests they can do with like blood tests, and I don't remember which one it is, but like I think you're supposed to be under 30 in that range, and mine was over 300. So like my liver levels were like very off, but they were coming down on this drug, and with everything coming back negative, I got like a diagnosis of primary sclerosing cholangitis, which often most people that have that have Crohn's or colitis. So within a year, 9 months almost, yeah, 9 months, I was diagnosed with Crohn's and PSC. And since then, I've like been decent at taking my medication. I find it works really well. I do not have the worst variations of these diseases. I haven't really gone into like what they really are. I mean, you can Google them if you want. The medication definitely helps. Food definitely makes a difference. I know dairy is a huge trigger, and I have found like I seem to have like a dairy threshold, you know, like I could have a certain amount and then after that it starts flaring up. If I have lactose-free dairy versions, I can have like more, but I try to keep it very limited. And I'm curious about a gluten thing, because I had some intense pain, kind of different, more intense than I've ever had last week, and I wonder, because the only thing that I really ate different was eating more gluten than I have in a long time. So, curious thing. So I'm sharing this for when I share recipes and different things, a little bit of backstory. Maybe this will help other people who are diagnosed with Crohn's or PSC. I know sometimes it can be helpful to hear the stories of other people on the journey. So yeah, I think that's all. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I will answer them to the best of my ability. I don't have a very good memory, nor have I really looked a ton up other than specific things, and then I apparently promptly forget them. So I haven't had a colonoscopy for a few years, actually. I think pre-COVID. I was supposed to get one, and then COVID hit, and then it hasn't happened yet, because the Canadian health system, at least in Saskatchewan, is really behind, and because my stuff has been very stable, my doctor hasn't felt the need to make me get one, which is great. I mean, like, the prep, the colonoscopy prep, the drink, that is my worst part, is drinking that drink. But I'm assuming I'll be going for one soonish. So yeah, there's my story. Feel free to ask questions. Hope it was informative. I'm going to share some recipes in the nearish future. Thanks so much for being here, guys.